Thanks, Emma. I mean, each speaker has raised so many sort of different issues. It really is hard to draw the threads together, but maybe if we start with the first question on the Mentimeter, which you've voted to hear the answer to. And it's a challenging question. So is the labour problem in horticulture primarily driven by the lack of willingness to pay staff a high enough wage? So maybe start, who wants to start?
Happy to start with
Emma.
I will pay any worker who comes to my farm. I don't care what nationality they are. I don't care if they're pink with purple polka dots. I'll give them the $31.50 an hour that the seasonal workers are costing me. I'm more than happy to pay that amount. And when we think about the minimum wage in Australia, and I don't mean to be rude because it's a very difficult job that our harvesters do, but if you can walk into a place and get work at $31 an hour, I think you're doing okay. So to say that we don't pay enough, I think is unreasonable. And there's also the notion of productivity bonuses where our biggest challenge is getting workers onto the farm. If you say to me that you're going to pack, an extra 50% or you're going to pick an extra 50% than anybody else, I'll happily give you an extra 50% on your wage. There are more challenges than just the cost of that labour. So for us, the harvest staff, we've got 2 Australian full-timers who are working for us who started as harvest staff, and we're trying to build them through the ranks. The problem for the Australians is that seasonal nature of it. So often we partner with the job service agencies who get paid when we actually employ someone, which is excellent. We will give those workers a job, and then as soon as they've got the opportunity for ongoing full-time work somewhere else, they'll take it, and I wouldn't resent them the fact that they need to take that either. So the right people in the right jobs, because we can't change the job, we can't turn it into steel, and it won't ever come off a production line quite in that manner.
David DePaoli, so you've got 200 staff. Are you paying them well enough, and is that an issue for you?
What do you want me to say? I don't pay them well enough, and then the odd bunch then be up me.
Reading the question.
So we've had, because we're high profile, we have probably an audit every year where someone says, I want to see your workplace agreement, da, 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 da. And out of all those audits, that takes hours and hours and hours and hours trolling through all those pay slips, not one was out. So pee off and go and get the ones at the back, not on the road, the ones at the back, that don't do the right thing.
Yeah.
So it's easy for these people, and I said afterwards it was up to here, and I said, well, I know where the people aren't paying, you've got to go there. The comment was, we can't go there because we've been threatened, and if we go there, we won't come out. That's what the inspector told me. So I rang his boss, and I said, do you realise that? Yeah, I'll take it up. But no, they still, and the year after they come and audit us again, but they don't get the people at the back who are doing the wrong thing. It's only a minority. I've got people there doing their second round of long service. 20 years they started and they're still there. So am I paying enough? Of course I'm bloody paying enough. They get treated right, you give and you get. And look, no matter what the colour of your skin, where you come from, you get given the same chance, you give them and they give back to you. And it's easy. People who can't get people, I think that's bullshit. And the other thing is, what I have to do now to compete against the rest of the world, because the barriers are coming down, I have to go in automation. But the people I'm starting to employ now are mechatronic engineers and so forth. So I'm putting those skills of people in there, and we're doing it in-house. To the point, before I go down in the ground, I want to have an autonomous orchard. That's my goal. So I'm going to have robotics and automation in there that actually runs the whole thing. And it's been forced on me because we've got to do it to a price.
I got a very tech-savvy 16-year-old. Do you reckon I can send him to you for work experience?
No problem.
Busy, do you want to answer that question? Perhaps leading then into automation and the replacement of lower skilled staff with higher skilled but fewer staff.
I think I'm being paid, so I don't know if they, except someone is going to tell me if I'm being paid enough or not, because I don't own my business. But I think relatively, when you have the right people, you would be ready to invest in them. And we can't get away from the idea where, yes, people would say in horticulture, you don't get as much money, you don't get as paid as much as if you work in other part of the food industry, because I've experienced that, I've worked in food industry. But there are other things that you look at in terms of what value you're getting from doing a job. It's not all just about the pay sometimes. Like I was in Sydney for a long time. I moved to Shepparton, but the lifestyle there actually pays me more than what I was getting in Sydney. I know that we don't always want to, because lifestyle doesn't necessarily pay the bills, and I can understand that. But if you're doing a good job, I'm sure your employer will be ready to put that extra amount into paying you. And that's why we don't have a choice with having to go automation, because if you're not going to have enough people, and like Emma said, yes, it's because of the seasonality in the job. Because if I'm working for someone and I know I would only have a job during their packing season, which is about 6-7 months in a year, I would want to go for something that would be able to sustain me longer. But when we also go into the automation, then it makes the season longer for everyone. So you have someone starting from the stone fruits towards summer end, then you have those going into apples and going into citrus. So you might virtually have people staying longer in the process and not seeing it just as a seasonal fruit, job.
If I can take another question from Mentimeter to you, Michael, is the horticulture sector worried about the incredible growth in the almond industry in recent years? And how are you ensuring that growth of these new sectors is sustainable for the future? Is that something you could answer, given your overview?
Yeah, sure. So just to be clear, we don't represent almonds, but in terms of fruit and vegetable and the broader...
Represent the competitors, really.
That's right. So, across horticulture, there's a strength in having a multitude of products and not reliant on any one product. And there is going to be competition between those products. And, water is probably the most sensitive issue and something that, needs to be considered and resolved. But, that's not only a challenge for almonds or other sectors, it's a challenge across agriculture. And going to Emma's point around frameworks and government action, I think it's a good example of where we need to have an open conversation and consider how a rapidly growing industry such as almonds moves forward along with fruit and vegetables and other products. So we're probably not having that conversation, but it'd be a key role for government in terms of supporting the sector to move forward and do so in a way which is sustainable both from a business perspective but also for the industry more broadly and regional communities.
Maybe we can go to this next question. So this is, how do you reconcile, it goes back to the question we were talking about, how do you reconcile that increased automation and decreased requirements for labour with the impact it'll have on regional communities? Busy.
Yeah. So we're saying decreased requirement for labour, but we're saying we're not even having enough labour. The only thing the difference is going to be that I don't have to rely a lot on backpackers, because then I would not have to need 39 people to run a shift, because now I would only need maybe between 15 and 16, and I'm sure I would be able to get those ones locally. So that definitely it's not going to affect the number of people that I'm going to take in. It's just that I don't have to put in that extra of trying to get more people when we're talking of shortage. And the automation part of it, again, like I said, you can either reduce your staff level by 30% and still do what you do, or keep what you have and increase your productivity, increase the amount of fruits that would run through your packing shed, which would still give you a better value for money.
Emma, you're nodding. So can you pick up from there?
I was just thinking about the difference between the migrant workforce and those shortages. I was nodding because I was thinking to myself, we're so far away from that being an issue. Like, you know what, like, if you're looking for work and you're willing to do anything, then all of the stuff that's going through these automated pack houses, in regards to robotics in the field, we're a long, long way off. So you still need the hands on the ground that can tell you whether or not the cauliflower is white or if it's kind of yellow, and whether or not they should pick it or not pick it. So I don't see, and plus the growth in the industry is going to drive a demand for workers as we're going.
We'll pick up from there.
Yeah, I think if you turn it around another way, you can say that robotics in the shed, for example, can help to unlock the profitability within the supply chain. So if you're managing that, and to Emma's point around field robotics, there's going to continue to be challenges for a long time. It's not a binary better or worse. There are huge opportunities, particularly within a growth, as we're looking to export more. So yeah, it's removing a constraint rather than being a concern for regional communities.
And you've got no population problems, David, in your area. You've got a burgeoning population. Even though you use automation, do you have enough work for them? And does it contribute to the regional development?
Well, yes, because our operation's all year, so we're not seasonal. So it's very easy to have permanent, and all those people are permanent, by the way. They're not casuals. We just top up with backpackers if we get behind because of rain or whatever. But no, it's no problem. And so there's over 200 families in the region we're supporting, and then the export dollars that come in from all over the world, that money comes into Bundaberg as well. So I think we got, as far as the social side, I think you got to look bigger than just the wages.
So there's another question on Mentimeter. David, to you again. Are there reasons why there hasn't been a greater uptake of regenerative farming practices elsewhere? Are there specific factors that make it particularly advantageous for horticulture?
You know, the first slide I put up there about roadkill?
Yeah.
That's the answer. People don't like change. They're in a comfort zone. Their fathers did it, they're going to do it. They don't want to see change, they want to adapt. And that's all it is. But eventually they look over the fence and say, how come they're not? How come he's growing that? And then all of a sudden, come in, I'll show you how to do it. So it will take time. People are creatures of habits, and it takes a while for them to adapt new stuff.
And I think the difference that you see now in yields, like my language is always too strong. I was going to say raping and pillaging the land, but I think that the outcomes of raping and pillaging is becoming more apparent now. So before it used to be you were a hippie greenie who didn't care to make a commercial return from your farm, and that's why you did regenerative ag. And now the pendulum has swung back in the other way, where that intensification, like let's go out and make dairy cows instead of dairy and beef cows, let's make them do 1 million litres of milk, but we don't really want to eat the meat. Now we're going back and rethinking that notion of dual purpose breeds, because we're losing that diversity when we've intensified in that manner. So monoculture doesn't work anymore. In fact, farmers are now realising that regenerative ag is actually putting more dollars in their pocket. And I'll go back to the point that if we underpin that by payments or a scheme by the government where you were actually you were paid for the fact that you were doing this on behalf of the whole of Australia and in fact the rest of the globe, that would actually get people maybe to take that first step down a path that they think is going to cost them money rather than one that's going to make them money.
I think it's missing here, and it's missing on the panel. Protected cropping, it has expanded, it has grown. We had a speaker yesterday talking about modular farms. Maybe one of you pick up on where protected cropping fits into this expansion in horticulture and where it, the role it'll play in the $100 billion target.
Yeah, certainly. From our perspective, certainly not missing. I mean, there's some companies in the room, some of the biggest players in protected cropping in horticulture in Australia. It's a key driver of production. I suppose from our perspective, we need access to more consumers. As we mentioned at the start, if horticulture is going to continue to grow, there's probably not so much a production problem. There's some challenges. But if we can grow a lot more produce, particularly under protected cropping, up to 7 times more productive in a protected cropping facility, but we'll be swimming in produce unless we have folks to sell it to. So those things go together. Production and making sure we're addressing those issues, but also making sure that we're opening up markets, driving change. I mean, David's spoken, to processed produce, but also huge potential for protected.
Yes, anyone want to pick up on that? So
I think that where we're growing things in this country is also shifting we're all saying, oh, the drought broke. Like, it's not actually that simple, and there'll be droughts in the future, and they're going to, we're being told that these weather events are going to get more and more hectic. We've been considering on our farm whether or not there's a case actually to be doing high rainfall, low cool climate grains. So where grain and livestock production is happening is also changing. So I think that's going to be pushing into some of those horticulture spaces because of water security traditionally, and it'll drive the need. Essentially, the market, supply and demand really dictates all. But where we can grow things will have an impact on the fact that if you can grow something 12 months of the year in a protected cropping facility, particularly something that's high value, that needs to really needs that protection, that they'll always, it's certainly going to be a growing industry.
And David, with Australia, you don't stand still, as you say. So, are you investing in protected cropping, especially as Paradise Dam is going to reduce the water flow for irrigators like yourselves?
No, because certain things do well in protected cropping, certain things you waste your time. And in Bundaberg, we've got such a wonderful climate that I can do stuff in the field with all that technology I just put up there before. We can control a lot of that stuff. So you control your EC, you control a lot of stuff. And so the added cost of the capital investment doesn't stack up for me personally. We've done trials, we've put stuff in very automated houses, and we just don't get the return. So horses for courses, but in Bundaberg, no, not cold enough.
All right, so we're pressing into lunchtime. Would you all like to go to lunch, a vote, or a couple more questions? What do you think? A couple more questions? Yes, there's a few nods. All right, well, let's go. So, Emma, there's a question here for you. Do you think other small growers are able to make similar agreements with wholesalers to the ones you have made?
100%. And I think I'm probably most... it's been challenging because we're trying to get two teams to actually work together and work as one team. And I was speaking with the wholesaler, her name's Catherine. I was speaking with Catherine on Sunday when my boys were getting really frustrated that we had stock backing up in our cool room, and don't these morons know what they're doing about her boys? And so it's kind of like turned into a bit of a cockfight. And I rang her and I said, I think the problem is that there's got to be a fundamental shift in the mentality, and your staff aren't actually used to it. Neither are mine really, but her staff particularly are used to behaving as wholesalers, which means, all care, really no responsibility. I'll get a price, I'll make the margin or the agency in between, and you can kind of be told to. They can tell people to bend over, apparently. So getting them to understand, actually, it's your stock. It's yours, you own it. In fact, you've already borne the risk. That there is such a difference in mentality between the way a farmer thinks about the crop and the stock and the way that a wholesaler does. Because for us, saving, particularly when we were growing like 2 million cauliflower a year, saving 1 cent of cost on a seedling is a significant amount of money for the business. So the farmer makes money actually by saving costs, not by hoping that the market's really strong. Because you kind of grow it anyway, and you often don't know what the market's going to be unless you've kind of stitch it up. So getting them to realise actually it's really important that you give us the packaging material first. We don't want to put it in bins. We don't want you to repack it because your CHEP pallets are sitting in our shed and they're costing you $1 or $2 a day. Like all of those little cost efficiencies, I think that her business hasn't had to think about it from that perspective. So that's interesting, like that changing mentality. But both of us were really passionate about proving that the model can work and that you can build trust in the supply chain, and that when you do that, that's actually how you extract the most value out of the supply chain. Instead of us fighting with each other for that dollar, that actually we're working together to increase what that dollar's actually worth. So we'll be very keen at the end with the analysis of how the whole thing's gone to actually roll this out, not just in her business, but potentially be sharing the benefits with other small growers and getting mounting the case for why it actually works for everybody, and that working together is actually better than working against each other.
That sounds like a loose cooperative.
Yeah, I guess. But I think that the difference is that loose cooperative. I think that's fair.
David?
So there are other ways to do it, like what we're doing. We're all over the world. We're challenging the system. We're breaking the mould, but not every grower wants to do that. So they come behind us. So we'll go and get the market, but all these other small growers are mic growers, basically. So that's another way of taking everyone on the journey.
Those other growers that don't want to do it is my dad, who just cannot, accept, like you can nearly go broke, but the thought of giving away the risk upside. Mind you, this is a man who refuses to go into the casino, right? Because why would you gamble your money? He just could not accept. He still hasn't accepted. I want you to do the price went up, and he's like, you work out the numbers. If we had sold them for ourselves, and I'm like, yes, but Dad, I still would have to get the workers. I'd have to take the risk. I'd have to find the freight. I'd have to do all of those other things that we're getting as a benefit. But getting growers to give away that notion that they're going to win big at the end of every season, which I think happens less and less these days than what it did back in the lucrative 80s when everyone was rolling in cash, is a really difficult mentality to shift.
So maybe a final question, but it's quite a narrow question still. That in some ways the viability of automation capital costs is linked to supply. So what are the barriers to your shed getting extra supply that's needed? David, or busy?
I think a lot of the packhouses now are looking a lot into export. So well, the retailers are virtually the ones that control the price within the country. Exports, especially when I'm looking at the line of apples and pears, I'm not sure of the other ones, it's, we don't make that much money on export, sending those things out, and it's all because of the cost of production. But what the industry is looking at is, if you have just enough or a little bit less than enough within the country, then it's going to push the price up for the growers. So when you have it saturated, that's when the supermarket will determine what the prices should be. But when it's just enough, so those are the areas where people are then saying, well, let's produce more. We'll send them out because now our cost of production would be less than what it is now. Unfortunately for us, we have the Chile and South Africa, they have the same season with us, so they easily flood in all those other markets. But I think the green part of things still helps us, so people can still trust what's coming out from here, and that's been what we've been using as our brand to sell things in the export market.
Final thought, and then we'll let everybody go to
So
lunch.
there's two ways to do automation. The expensive way and the smart way. And you can go and get anything turnkey and pay mega dollars, or you design it. So as I said before in my presentation, make the machine work longer hours. So we adapt, like the robotics we're making now are going to pick up chilies, put them in a punnet, then they're going to pick up the tubes at night time and put them in the box, pick up the tubs and put them in the other. So that robot works day and night. So you need to adapt technology over a big range of hours, and it pays, and we build it ourselves. So automation is not necessarily expensive. You just need to be smart how you adopt it and purchase it.
I think it's a good spot to end on. So how about we put our hands together for the panel. Thank you very much. Emma, David, Busy and Michael, thank you.